I think the old left-right division, yeah, there's a lot of that. But I think there's a very different division in America. And that is an America that's working for a thinner and thinner slice at the top and not working for much of anyone else.
Is that enough to bridge, the systems, the ecosystems of misinformation and hyperpartisanship, things that are,
and even more practically, is it enough to get anything passed in Mitch McConnell's Senate? Why don't talented people want to continue to work for you?
But they do. I hope you meet the people outside in the hall. I may not be the leading candidate right now, but I have beaten like 19 people, including every governor. And so you can't run a presidential campaign if you have a dysfunctional work environment. My campaign manager is the same one I've had for 14 years. My state director has been with me for 7 years. The acting chief of staff has been with me for 4 years and is on her third baby.
All right, those are the two candidates who the New York Times editorial board endorsed for the 2020 Democratic presidential race. Two candidates joining us now, member of the New York Times editorial board, Mara Gay. Mara, thanks so much for being on. So two choices for the first time ever, reflecting a party divided?
Listen, the party is extremely divided, and this is really our way of narrowing that field and also just pointing out to voters that there is more than one pathway forward here. I think that Senators Klobuchar and Warren, we believe, are the best standard bearers for those two paths, but also just kind of reimagining, taking a step back and reimagining what electability really means and trying to broaden that vision. The amount of votes that Donald Trump won by in 2016 was extremely narrow. So there's more than one way to build a winning coalition, and this is a nod to that as well.
Yesterday you said you accepted Bernie's apology, and now you're attacking him. Why are you doing that? Why wasn't his apology enough, Mr. Vice President?
Right this way,
Why attack Sanders?
Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. He apologized for saying that I was corrupt. He didn't say anything about whether or not I was telling the truth about Social Security.
Thank you guys.
Impeachment may be dominating the headlines, but the race to challenge President Trump in this year's election is about to kick into a new gear. John Yang reports on the push to win support before the first voters have their say.
For Iowa Democrats, decision time is nearing as campaign buses roll, like this one with a populist theme carrying Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders.
How you doing?
Boosted by polls showing his message gaining steam.
Oh, we're feeling good. Polls are polls. What matters is the kind of grassroots activism that we have. We got people knocking on doors all over the state.
But for the rising candidate, there's rising pressure. Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar told NBC News that Sanders is too liberal.
I don't think he should be leading the ticket. I think I should be leading the ticket because my ideas are much more in sync with bold ways of getting things done.
A third senator, Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, also zoomed to Iowa during the weekend break in the impeachment trial.
Good to be in Muscatine. Hey, Senator. Good not to be in Washington.
Hers was a topsy-turvy weekend, lagging in some polls, but also scoring the endorsement from the Des Moines Register editorial board. She, too, made the case that she could win in November.
Also, can we just address it right here? Women win. We took back the House, and we took back state houses around the nation because of women candidates and the women who get out there and do the hard work to get it done.
Former Mayor Pete Buttigieg staked his claim to electability on his outreach to non-Democrats. His venue, a town hall hosted by Fox News.
I'm meeting a lot of what I like to call future former Republicans who are coming to my events. If you're having trouble looking your kids in the eye and explaining this presidency to them, then you have a choice.
Still, even though Iowa's caucuses are just a week away, it was not the sole focus of the leading candidates. Former Vice President Joe Biden was in New Hampshire, where the primary is set for the following week. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm John Yang.
I was really kind of taken aback. I was genuinely shocked.
Des Moines activist Ed Fallon says his brief conversation with Vice President Joe Biden happened Sunday.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Biden made a quick campaign stop at Urban Dreams in Des Moines. Fallon waited in line for a picture and wanted to confront Biden on his climate change proposals. Another member of Fallon's bold Iowa group recorded the cell phone video.
I'm going to support you if you win the nominations. We got to get rid of Trump.
It started off fine, but Biden quickly became agitated when Fallon didn't agree to support him in the caucuses.
We got to stop building and replacing pipelines.
You got to go vote for somebody else.
All right, thanks so much, sir. We're going to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'm going to vote you in the general if you treat me
Yeah,
right.
I know. Well, I'm not.
Well, can I have a
Look, you're asking a picture of me. You're coming up and telling me you don't support me.
No.
My plan. Yeah, you did. You said
I said I would support you in the general.
In the general. I'm looking for a primary.
We're happy to get a number.
That's what I'm looking for, okay?
Just because
Now,
we're trying to get.
you believe that Bernie can do something by 2030?
I'm actually supporting Tom Steyer.
The first surprise is that Biden told Fallon to vote for someone else.
I did not expect to be told to leave, to go vote for somebody else, and then to be lectured.
One campaign source says that the results app that they were using, this was a new app that they were supposed to be reporting each result from each precinct location around the state, has not been working, and the phone backup system that they had in place, according to one source, is a disaster.
The general counsel, meaning the top lawyer for the Biden for President campaign, has released a letter to the Iowa Democratic Party. Dear Mr. Price and Mr. Geiken, the heads of the Democratic Party, Troy Price, the chair, and Kevin Geiken, the executive director of the Iowa Democratic Party, quote, I write on behalf of the Biden for President campaign regarding the considerable flaws in tonight's Iowa caucus reporting system. The app that was intended to relay caucus results to the party failed. The party's backup telephonic reporting system likewise has failed. Now we understand that caucus chairs are attempting to, and in many cases failing to, report results telephonically to the party. These acute failures are occurring statewide. We appreciate that you plan to brief the campaigns momentarily on these issues, and we plan to participate. However, we believe that the campaigns deserve full explanations and relevant information regarding the methods of quality control you are employing and an opportunity to respond before any official results are released. We look forward to hearing from you promptly. In the meantime, we're on to New Hampshire on the road to the most important election of our lifetimes. Again, that's the top lawyer for the Biden campaign ripping the Iowa Democratic Party and saying this is a big deal. It's statewide. It's a cute failure. And you better talk to us before you say anything about what happened today.
Acute, the one word kind, and not two. So that's the kind
it's
you
not
never want to
acute
see.
failure.
Did they have training? Did they actually, get people used to manipulating and using just in a sort of, trial sense? Here, let's use some of the data from the 2016 election and put that in and see how you guys can deal with it.
This is from the Iowa Democratic Party Communications Director, Mandy McClure. Ready? This is our first official explanation from the Iowa Democratic Party. Ready? Drum roll. The integrity of the results is paramount. We have experienced a delay in the results due to quality checks and the fact that the Iowa Democratic Party is reporting out 3 data sets for the first time. What we know right now is that around 25% of precincts have reported, and early data indicates turnout is on pace for 2016.
Remember, we're talking about how basically it was all counted at this time 4 years ago. The difference, remember, was 4 state delegate equivalents between Clinton and Sanders, the closest Iowa Democratic caucuses in history. And the Sanders campaign believed, because of what we're talking about, where those college counties don't necessarily get the same bang for their buck with state delegate equivalents, they believed they won the raw vote, the initial preference in 2016. And they basically raised hell about it. And the DNC mandated after 2016 that the Iowa Democratic Party, in the name of transparency, was to provide that initial preference, the raw vote, and the reallocated total, and this final state delegate equivalent total. And by the way, figure out how to do that. So it's not necessarily something the Iowa Democratic Party was looking for, was looking to take upon itself. But the DNC, after all those Clinton-Sanders politics of 2016, said, Iowa, you got to do this.
We're joined on the phone by Sean Sebastian, who's a caucus secretary in Ames, Iowa tonight, which is in Story County, Iowa, in Precinct 1-1. He was the caucus secretary. And Sean, I really appreciate you making time to join us tonight. What can you tell us about what happened in terms of reporting results from your precinct?
Well, I think, as you just mentioned, the app that we were told to download just hasn't been working. So in the handbook that we were given a hotline to call to report the results. And I've just been on hold pretty much since 8:30 trying to report these results in.
You've been on hold for 2 hours trying to report the results from your one precinct?
Yes.
The guy in the White House is chuckling all night here, showing the Democrats can't even get a 3-car funeral organized, or whatever you want to call it. I would say to the people of Iowa, well, the last person leaving Des Moines, please turn out the lights.
In this case, I mean, we don't know exactly what's going to happen tonight. We don't know what's going to happen in the next few minutes. And we don't know how Iowa is going to fit into the larger stack of these primaries. But I will say, I think we're expecting, if not a muddle, at least a little bit of a black box in the Democratic primary. Because even after the 4 early states, even if one candidate sweeps all of them, heading into Super Tuesday, here comes the money monster Mike Bloomberg with however many billions to spend, having not competed in the early 4, who becomes a whole big new question mark in terms of how Democratic voters are going to respond to him as of 1 month from tonight, Super Tuesday, with the early states behind him.
I can tell you the new results that just came in while we fix this. The new results were up to 92% of the precincts reporting in Iowa in the basically the popular vote. The first. Okay, here it is. Okay. Sorry, I really apologize. Okay. This thing has a mind of its own. Here it is. 92% in state delegate equivalents. Buttigieg continues to lead. The margin is 1%. Now, you can see in this latest update, Sanders has cut the gap. 513, you see here. 531 for Buttigieg. It's a gap of 18. Oh, it's a gap of 18. Somehow I just called up the Nebraska primary. 531 to 513. It was 24 before this, so he has cut that from 24 to 18. Still, to get that to 0 for Sanders might be difficult. There is also this popular vote, first preference, whatever you want to call it. Sanders continues to open up a wider lead here. Now it's approaching 5,000 votes here. Sanders over Buttigieg, again, with 92% in. So very difficult. I mean, almost impossible, really, to see Buttigieg catching Sanders in the popular vote at this point. When they did the reallocation, this whole thing, the second choice, much tighter there, but still over 1,000. Sanders continues to lead Buttigieg on that. But it is when you get to the state delegate equivalents. This is the thing they traditionally use to award the winner. The state delegate equivalent is the unit that determines national convention delegates. Right. This is where Buttigieg has the advantage. And again, it'll be tough for Sanders to overtake that, but he has just cut into it a little bit.
More than 3 days after the last Iowa caucus vote was tallied, the Iowa Democratic Party has published results from all 1,681 precincts. But the caucus confusion appears to be far from over. That's our top story tonight at 10. For now, Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders are in a near deadlock, each securing 11 state delegates. Buttigieg with a mere 0.07% advantage in delegate equivalents, both listed at 26%. But according to another matrix used by the Democrats, the final alignment of caucus goers, or the popular vote, Sanders is out in front by about 2,000 voters. Meanwhile, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren and former VP Joe Biden finishing in the top 4 as they ranked throughout the caucus count. Warren with 5 delegates and Biden 2. Not showing is Amy Klobuchar, who finished 5th, good enough for 1 delegate. No other candidate received more than 1% support.
Republican Joe Walsh ended his long-shot bid to defeat President Trump. It comes after he got only 1% of the vote in the Iowa GOP caucuses.
I am ending my candidacy for president of the United States. Look, I got into this because I thought it was really important that there was a Republican out there every day calling out this president for how unfit he is.
His exit leaves President Trump with only one Republican challenger, former Governor Bill Weld of Massachusetts. With an enormous war chest and support from the GOP machine, President Trump's re-election campaign has made it nearly impossible for a challenger to drum up support. On the trail, Walsh frequently criticized the Republican National Committee for appearing to back the state parties who have scrapped their GOP primaries.
Right now, this party, my party, is disenfranchising millions of Republican voters all over the country.
Walsh, a Tea Party Republican, told CNN that he'll do anything to stop President Trump, even help a Democrat clinch the presidency in 2020.
Any Democrat would be better than Trump in the White House.
why are Senator Sanders and Mayor Buttigieg too big a risk for Democrats?
Bernie's labeled himself, not me, a democratic socialist.
President Trump certainly thinks this label socialism will work. If you're the nominee, why shouldn't Democrats be worried?
Because Donald Trump lies all the time.
So unless you can appeal to the diverse parts of the Democratic Party, including specifically the black community, including specifically Latinos, if you can't do that, then we can't beat Donald Trump in November, and we can't choose a candidate who can't do that.
When our nominee is dividing people with a politics that says if you don't go all the way to the edge, it doesn't count. A politics that says it's my way or the highway.
Are you talking about Senator Sanders?
Yes, because we've got to bring as many people as we can into this process.
Bernie says that you have to bring people together and we have to have Medicare for all. But Bernie says, and he says he wrote the damn thing, but he's unwilling to tell us what the damn thing's going to cost.
If we do what Joe wants, we'll be spending some $50 trillion on health care over the next 10 years. That's the status quo, Joe. That's what Health and Human Services says. What Medicare for All will do is save the average American substantial sums of money.
I keep listening to this same debate, and it is not real. It is not real, Bernie, because 2/3 of the Democrats in the Senate are not on your bill, and because it would kick 149 million Americans off their current health insurance in 4 years.
How about we start with what a president can do? I love saying this, all by herself. On day one, I will defend the Affordable Care Act, and I will use march-in orders to reduce the cost of commonly used prescription drugs.
I think this going after every single thing that people do because it's popular to say and makes you look like a cool newcomer, I don't think that's what people want right now. We have a newcomer in the White House, and look where it got us.
Donald Trump is not the cause of all of our problems, and we're making a mistake when we act like he is.
That's right.
He is a symptom of a disease that has been building up in our communities for years and decades.
We're not going to let them change the subject. This is not about Hunter Biden or Vice President Biden or any Biden. This is about an abuse of power by the president.
And by the way, Colonel Vindman got thrown out of the White House today, walked out. I think we should, and at the same time, he should be pinning a medal on Vindman and not on Rush Limbaugh. And I think what we should be doing now, I think we should all stand and give Colonel Vindman a show of how much we supported him. Stand up and clap for Vindman. Get up there. Who we are.
These things are all connected, but that's the point. So are all of the things that need to change.
Senator Warren, is that a substantial answer from Mayor Buttigieg?
No. You have to own up to the facts.
And we have a president that literally blames everyone in the world, and we have not talked about this enough. He blames Barack Obama for everything that goes wrong. He blames his Federal Reserve chair that he appointed himself. He blames the King of Denmark. Who does that? He blames the Prime Minister of Canada for, he claims, cutting him out of the Canadian version of Home Alone 2. Who does that? We have a newcomer in the White House, and look where it got us.
But now we have to meet this moment. And as to experience, I just bring a different perspective. Look, I freely admit that if you're looking for the person with the most years of Washington establishment experience under their belt, you've got your candidate, and of course it's not me.
Meeting the moment. We had a moment the last few weeks, Mayor, and that moment was these impeachment hearings. And there was a lot of courage that you saw from only a few people. But what you said, Pete, as you were campaigning through Iowa, as three of us were jurors in that impeachment hearing, you said it was exhausting to watch and that you wanted to turn the channel and watch cartoons.
Because it's 2020, to send a message that is totally different than what's emanating from Washington today. I don't know about you, but watching the news right now, watching the impeachment coverage, watching the Senate is exhausting. I live and breathe politics, and I find it exhausting. It's just
gets you down. It makes you want to watch cartoons instead.
It is easy to go after Washington because that's a popular thing to do. It is much harder, as I see Senator Shaheen in the front row, such a leader. It is much harder to lead and much harder to take those difficult positions, because I think this going after every single thing that people do because it's popular to say and makes you look like a cool newcomer, I don't think that's what people want right now. We have a newcomer in the White House, and look where it got us. I think having some experience is a good thing.
Welcome back. Here we are live in New Hampshire on primary eve. And as mentioned, we are surrounded by a lot of New Hampshire residents. I'm going to have you guy pull back a little bit and just ask everyone by a show of hands, how many people here are New Hampshire voters here in this area? Great. And how many of you are still undecided or might still change your mind? Let's start right here. Who are you leaning towards?
Buttigieg.
And what could make you change your mind, or who else are you thinking of?
I'm just, just, having the opportunity to hear the candidate speak, and just looking to see if anyone changes my opinion. But right now, that's where I'm leaning towards.
And what do you learn about candidates from going to events or the debate?
Yep, we went to the convention, the Democratic Party event on Saturday night, listening to all the candidates speak, which was really good, and just seeing what they have to say.
So that's striking. We're talking to people who literally just saw basically every top candidate in person. Who are you leaning to? I have a clue.
Amy. Amy.
And why?
She speaks to me. I've seen her 3 times since Friday night's debate, and she really speaks to me, and that's what I'm looking for in a president. She's going to get the job done. She's worked with the moderate Republicans, like she says. I'm a huge cause for mental health. I've been working in the mental health field since 16 years. My mom's will be past 4 years now in May, and I took care of her. My dad's failing in health. I'm taking care of him now. Senior health care, long-term care, in-home care, so I don't have to put him in a nursing home, is huge to me. Amy speaks to me for that.
And you feel like she has plans that will work?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to give her a shot to get it done.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing a little bit of your story with us. I want to go over here. Well, I saw some hands up over here. Who's still undecided or could change here?
I'm almost decided.
Almost to who?
Well, I have 2 candidates I really, really admire. One is Michael Bennett, and he's amazing. Oh, wow. And the other is Pete Buttigieg. They're both 2 of the most compassionate, humane individuals that I have heard speak. And they both care deeply about education and our futures with our children and our environment. And they would take care of both of those. Both people would take care of those.
And you're nodding yes.
I'm for Joe.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
And when you here we go. We found a Biden voter. No, I'm only kidding. But let me say it like this. You hear all this trash. You've heard the trash talk, yes?
Oh, terrible.
Terrible. So what's your response? Here you have a chance to tell everyone.
Joe is great. I voted for him in the past 2 elections, and he has the heart to bring the nation back to being together again.
And he was down a little bit. You think he can still come back?
He better.
There you have it. I'm going to do one more right over here, and then we got 2 guests to talk us through all of this. Come on with me. Here we go. I saw you over here. You're still undecided?
No.
Who are you leaning towards?
Bernie.
Here we go. We were just talking to Michael Moore about it. What do you like about Bernie Sanders?
I love his platform. I just love the way he speaks to the people. I saw him today, and actually I went to the dinner the other day, and I saw all the candidates, kept an open mind, but definitely decided in the last 24 hours I'm still a Bernie girl. I like that he is of the people, by the people, and he's not taking money from billionaires. And that's important because I think where you get your money matters, so that you can't be bought. And he's been saying the same things for years and years and years. I really like him.
Let me take this opportunity to thank the people of New Hampshire for a great victory tonight. This victory here is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump.
While there is great work left to be done, you know I am the math guy, and it is clear tonight from the numbers that we are not going to win this race. I am not someone who wants to accept donations and support in a race that we will not win. And so tonight I am announcing I am suspending my campaign for president. I have been persuaded that the message of this campaign will not be strengthened by my staying in this race any longer. Endings are hard, New Hampshire, but this is not an ending. This is a beginning.
Here in a state that goes by the motto, live free or die, you made up your own minds. You asserted that famous independent streak. And thanks to you, a campaign that some said shouldn't be here at all has shown that we are here to stay. So many of you decided that a middle-class mayor and a veteran from the industrial Midwest was the right choice to take on this president, not in spite of that experience, but because of it.
Tonight is not going to be our night, but let me say this to New Hampshire. You may see me once again. So thank you. I feel nothing but joy tonight as we conclude this particular campaign and this particular chapter. I am going to do absolutely everything I can do as one human being to make sure that Donald Trump is a one-term president.
Hello, America. I'm Amy Klobuchar, and I will beat Donald Trump. Well, there are still ballots left to count. We have beaten the odds every step of the way. We have done it on the merits, we have done it with ideas, and we have done it with hard work. Because we are resilient and strong as the people of this great nation.
So the results are still coming in from across the state, but right now it is clear that Senator Sanders and Mayor Buttigieg had strong nights. And I also want to congratulate my friend and colleague, Amy Klobuchar, for showing just how wrong the pundits can be when they count a woman out. The question for us Democrats is whether it will be a long, bitter rehash of the same old divides in our party, or whether we can find another way. Senator Sanders and Mayor Buttigieg are both great people, and either one of them would be a far better president than Donald Trump. I respect them both.
So when you hear all these pundits and experts, cable TV talkers talked about the race, tell them, it ain't over, man. We're just getting started. Our votes count too. We're not going to let anyone take this election away from you. Look, I've said many times, you can't be the Democratic nominee, and you can't win a general election as Democrat unless you have overwhelming support from black and brown voters. It's just really simple.
I think I'm doing fine. I think that we're going to come out of New Hampshire and come to Nevada, where, in fact, I've already come.
We are talking about the winners and losers from Tuesday night's New Hampshire Democratic primary. Bernie Sanders grabbed the most votes with 25.7%. Pete Buttigieg came in a close second with 24.4%. And Amy Klobuchar rounds out the top three with 19.8%. Elizabeth Warren finished in fourth place with a little more than 9% of the vote. Former Vice President Joe Biden came in fifth with 8.4%, and Tom Steyer finished sixth with 3.6%. Here to talk about last night's results, we have Travis County GOP Chairman Matt Makoviak and Ed Espinoza from Progress, Texas. Thank you both for being here.
Good to be here.
Ed, what are your thoughts on last night's poor showing for Biden and Warren and the surge of Buttigieg and Klobuchar?
Yeah, so I think the big news of the night is that Bernie Sanders might have won New Hampshire, but Amy Klobuchar won the night, surging from behind where she was polling is somewhere around 8 points about a week ago, up to nearly 20 points in New Hampshire. That's a big movement for her, and I think we're going to see a lot and hear a lot more from Klobuchar over the next few weeks.
What do you know about the Mexican president?
Okay, well, what I will tell you is that I will visit Mexico in the first 100 years. 100 days.
100 days.
I will visit there.
Are
Yes.
running for president.
Yes.
You would like to be the
Yes. Yes.
Democratic candidate.
Yeah.
What do you know about the Mexican president now?
Well, I know that he is elected in the last few years. I don't know him personally. I've met with the ambassador, and I was actually supportive of the trade agreement. So I worked with the embassy on that. They came to meet with me.
And I ask because it's so important, especially
Yes.
Nevada, California, Arizona, Texas. This
Yes.
is our neighbor to the south.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about him? Specifically his politics, what he's doing, since this would be the country you would share a border with? Anything
well,
you can tell me about him?
I know that they are neighbors, and regardless of who the leader is, that it is someone that I will work with.
Do you? I'm sorry to ask this, but do you know who he is? Do you know his name?
Yeah. I know that he is the Mexican president.
But can you tell me his name?
No. So.
Don't you think it would be important, if you're running for president, to know who the president of Mexico, the country to the south of the United States, is?
Yes.
Because it affects so many Americans.
Several former employees have claimed that your company was a hostile workplace for women. When you were confronted about it, you admitted making sexually suggestive remarks, saying, quote, "That's the way I grew up." In a lawsuit in the 1990s, according to the Washington Post, one former female employee alleged that you said, quote, "I would do you in a second." Should Democrats expect better from their nominee?
Let me say a couple things, and if I can have my full minute and a quarter, thank you. I have no tolerance for the kind of behavior that the Me Too movement has exposed. And anybody that does anything wrong in our company, we investigate it, and if it's appropriate, they're gone that day. But let me tell you what I do in my company and my foundation and in city government when I was there. In my foundation, the person that runs it's a woman. 70% of the people there are women. In my company, lots and lots of women have big responsibilities. They get paid exactly the same as men. And in my in City Hall, the top person, my deputy mayor, was a woman, and 40% of our commissioners were women. I am very proud of the fact that about 2 weeks ago, we were awarded. We were voted the the best place to work, second best place in America. If that doesn't say something about our employees and how happy they are, I don't know what does.
Senator Warren, you've been critical of Mayor Bloomberg on this issue.
Yes, I have, and I hope you heard what his defense was. I've been nice to some women. That just doesn't cut it. The mayor has to stand on his record, and what we need to know is exactly what's lurking out there. He has gotten some number of women, dozens, who knows, to sign non-disclosure agreements, both for sexual harassment and for gender discrimination in the workplace. So, Mr. Mayor, are you willing to release all of those women from those non-disclosure agreements so we can hear their side of the story?
We have a very few non-disclosure agreements.
How many is
Let me
that?
finish.
How many is that?
None of them accuse me of doing anything other than maybe they didn't like the joke I told. And let me put, there's agreements between two parties that wanted to keep it quiet, and that's up to them. They signed those agreements, and we'll live with it.
So wait, when you say it is up to, I just want to be clear. Some is how many? And when you say they signed them and they wanted them, if they wish now to speak out and tell their side of the story about what it is they allege, that's now okay with you? You're releasing them on television tonight?
Senator? No.
Is that right?
Senator,
tonight?
Senator, the company and somebody else, in this case, a man or a woman, or could be more than that, they decided when they made an agreement that they wanted to keep it quiet for everybody's interest. They signed the agreements, and that's what we're going to live with.
I'm sorry. No, the question is, are the women bound by being muzzled by you? And you could release them from that immediately, because understand, this is not just a question of the mayor's character. This is also a question about electability. We are not going to beat Donald Trump with a man who has who knows how many non-disclosure agreements and the drip, drip, drip of stories of women saying they have been harassed and discriminated against. That's not what we do as Democrats.
We have been listening to Vice President Joe Biden speaking in Nevada, and we are projecting that Bernie Sanders, NBC News projects Bernie Sanders, the winner in Nevada. Brand new breaking news numbers coming right out of Nevada. Our special team is here, and I want to go directly to Steve Kornacki at the big board. Walk us through what this means. A projected winner here, according to NBC News, Bernie Sanders takes Nevada.
So we can tell you, Ari, this has been an unusual afternoon in reaching this point. I think folks who've been following the coverage have known that early on we got entrance poll results that suggested a pretty overwhelming Sanders victory. But, of course, it is an entrance poll. It's not official vote. So we want to wait till we start getting official vote. And then before we got official vote, we started getting reports in from our spotters, from folks who work for this media consortium that covers all these different media organizations. We have spotters at some of the precincts around the state. They were taking down the results as they were announced at the precincts they were at and sending them to us. And so we were seeing that Sanders seemed to be comfortably ahead. But even at that point, for the last couple of hours, we really didn't have any official results from the state Democratic Party, which runs this. Now we're starting to get results here. You see, this is about 100 precincts, a little bit left. Less than 100 precincts that have now been reported out by the state Democratic Party. These precincts are absolutely in line with everything that we've seen in these entrance polls, with everything we've been told by our spotters has been happening around the state. And they just paint a picture here of a very clear and a very decisive victory for Bernie Sanders. You see 44% right now statewide. We'll see as 4% here. We're going to have a lot more comes in, so these numbers can move around a bit, but they are certainly pointing to an overwhelming Sanders victory. Again, there are really only 2 counties here in Nevada that have a lot of vote in them. This is the biggie. This is almost 3/4 of all the vote just from the Las Vegas Valley, from Clark County. And again, you see Sanders here running close to 50% early on. We have talked about Bernie Sanders doing extremely well, our entrance poll says, with Hispanic voters. Our entrance poll has him with an outright majority of Hispanic support in this thing, 51%, also running second to Joe Biden among African-American voters and leading among white voters as well. Also, we saw doing well from our reporters, doing very well in those casino caucuses where the Culinary Workers Union. And so Steve, overwhelming there. Yes.
And Steve, as we look at this breaking news here, NBC News now formally projecting Bernie Sanders winning Nevada for the first time here today. What does it tell you? What should viewers understand as we look at this news that we can, with our election experts, project this with so little of the numbers in? What does that say about the scale of the victory?
Yeah, again, it says our entrance poll was saying probably about a 2-to-1 victory for Sanders over his nearest rival. It's not entirely clear who's going to be in second place here. There's a bit of a cluster. But the entrance poll was saying about 2-to-1. All those precincts, about 300 of them around the state, that's 1/7 of the state where we had spotters, were saying about a 2-to-1 Sanders victory. And what's been reported out by the state party is showing that as well.
I've been saying to the media, I've known for a long time who I'm going to vote for. But I had not decided whether or not to share it with the public. But I want the public to know that I'm voting for Joe Biden. South Carolina should be voting for Joe Biden, and here's why. There's billboards around this counter. On that billboard's my pledge. A lot of people ask me, why do you do billboards? Because my late wife said to me, I don't care how many TV ads you run, I don't care how many radio ads you run. When you run for office, I want to see billboards. That's why I do billboards. And one of my colleagues came and says, this is the first time I've seen a political billboard with no picture on it. Why isn't your picture on the billboard? That's because it ain't about me.
That's right. Good evening. I'm Jose Diaz-Balart in Columbia, South Carolina. It is 7 o'clock in the east, and polls have just closed. NBC News is now projecting that former Vice President Joe Biden has won a decisive victory in the South Carolina Democratic primary. Widely considered a must-win for Biden, and he has done so by a substantial margin, potentially changing the dynamics of a race dominated so far by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, the winner in New Hampshire and Nevada, as we look ahead to Super Tuesday just 3 days from now, when 14 states and 1/3 of all delegates will be up for grabs. With South Carolina results still coming in tonight, Sanders is running second, with the other candidates well behind. Some insight from our exit poll on how Biden won here in South Carolina, where African Americans make up more than half of the electorate. When asked who best understands the concerns of minorities, voters said Biden by 42%, far more
than anyone else. And when we asked them, is your opinion of Joe Biden favorable or unfavorable? They said favorable by a very wide margin, 76%. Voters here are focused on winning in November. Asked, would you rather see a nominee that can beat Trump or one that agrees with you on issues? A majority, 53%, said beat Trump. NBC's Garrett Hake is just outside Columbia here in South Carolina. Garrett, what propelled Biden's win tonight?
Well, Jose, those same exit polls also show that African-American voters here overwhelmingly said that they wanted to see a return to Obama-era policies, not more liberal, not more conservative. Nobody wears the Obama mantle quite like Joe Biden. Also, this was an electorate that was a little bit older and a little bit more moderate to conservative, slightly less liberal than the other early states. All of those subgroups are a big part of the Biden coalition, or at least the Biden coalition that has been wanting up until this point. Really the first state where he's been able to put together all of those pieces and here create a convincing win.
And Garrett, what does this mean for Super Tuesday 3 days from now?
If Joe Biden can harness this momentum, it could be a big deal. He lags Bernie Sanders in some of the big states voting on Super Tuesday, California and Texas most notably. Could he reel Bernie Sanders back in there? And can he hold off Michael Bloomberg? This momentum coming out of South Carolina will help.
All right, I see 6th District Congressman Jim Clyburn coming out now. He endorsed Joe Biden earlier this week. A CBS exit poll today, nearly 50% of people who voted today said that man's endorsement, Trav, his endorsement of Joe Biden made a big impact on how they voted today.
There's no question about it. And I think that there were a lot of people who were very undecided over the past week going into this election.
All right, let's listen in to Jim Clyburn now.
It all bound down to one fact. People were confusing goodness as weakness. You do not have to be bombastic in order to get your point across. You don't have to call people names in order to have your positions understood. You don't have to tell falsehoods in order to make headlines about your proposals. We have as our candidate a man who understands what it's like to be an American. None of us have had the same experiences. All of us are but the sum total of our experiences. And all of our experiences have not been pleasant. But all of our experiences in one form or another have been blessings. And we are blessed with a candidate who understands what it is to restore the goodness that exists in this great country. He will get us away. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you really did not come here to hear me. And I did not come here to speak. I came here to introduce and present to you a good man. A man who understands the fundamentalist fairness upon which this democracy is built, a man who will restore the goodness of this business and take us to where this country can be. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend, one who I know, who you know, but most of all, who knows us.
So here's the deal. Let's get back up. We're decent, we're brave, we're resilient people. We can't believe again. We're better than this moment. We're better than this president. So get up, take back our country. This is the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity if we do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Former Vice President Joe Biden giving, now we can call it, a victory speech. As you can see, he had lots to say about his supporters here in South Carolina and what he expects to happen as we head into Super Tuesday. In just 3 days, 47% of voters in that exit poll said that Congressman Jim Clyburn's endorsement of Vice President Joe Biden was important to them and probably pushed that change, that wave that Biden was hoping to get here in South Carolina. One thing that I thought was really interesting as we look at absentee ballot numbers. Back in 2016, we had 54,000 absentee ballots turned in. This year, 75,000, more than 75,000 absentee ballots.
Yeah, pretty incredible. And of the speeches there that Biden just gave, I would say the most notable part of the speech, the one that got the most laughter, was when he looked at the crowd and he said, if the Democrats want a nominee who's a Democrat, and then took a long pause and then said, join us, to which everybody erupted in laughter. Of course, there he is taking a not so delicate swipe at Bernie Sanders, who calls himself a socialist.
The last remaining non-politician is out of the race for the White House. Tom Steyer announced he's ending his campaign. The billionaire-turned-candidate jumped into a crowded Democratic field in July 2019. Before that point, he was largely known as the guy calling for President Donald Trump's impeachment.
Mr. Trump is dangerous. He has more than met the standard for impeachment.
He continued to talk about that as a candidate, but he made his campaign's central talking point climate change.
We must treat the climate crisis with the urgency it demands.
Steyer's national poll numbers never escaped the single digits, but he did qualify for a handful of Democratic debates. Steyer was a big spender while his campaign was active, but he was largely spending his own money. Federal Election Commission data shows he contributed over $200 million to his own campaign. Steyer made his money as the founder of an investment company. Before launching his political career, he spent years as a philanthropist and political activist. He's likely to return to that path and to continue using his personal wealth to support progressive causes.
In the race for the White House, a major development overnight. Top contender Pete Buttigieg dropping out after Tom Steyer also calls it quits, all in the wake of Joe Biden's landslide victory in South Carolina on Saturday, winning by nearly 30 points. The narrowing field could help the former vice president as we head into Super Tuesday. 15 contests, more than a third of the Democratic convention delegates are at stake, and Eva Pilgrim has the latest.
Overnight, Pete Buttigieg dropping out of the race for president.
I will no longer seek to be the 2020 Democratic nominee for president, but I will do everything in my power to ensure that we have a new Democratic president come January.
In just a matter of hours, voters in 14 states begin the process of heading to the polls for Super Tuesday, while at the same time, the Joe Biden campaign has been more or less reformed. Tonight, something the former vice president has craved, the support of his rivals, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, O'Rourke, all in Texas, all through their support behind Joe Biden.
He is somebody of such extraordinary grace and kindness and empathy. He will bring the exact kind of empathy that is so badly lacking in this White House.
Joe Biden has dedicated his life to fighting for people and build that coalition of our fired up Democratic base, and it is fired up, as well as independents and moderate Republicans.
Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow, March 3rd, 2020, I will be casting my ballot for Joe Biden.
Just a few days ago, the press and the pundits declared this campaign dead. But South Carolina had something to say about it.
And Bernie Sanders, for that matter, is a big challenge for Joe Biden, who knows there is one endorsement out there unlike all the others. Tonight, NBC News reports that people close to former President Barack Obama say, quote, the signal has been sent in the past 36 hours that he sees Biden as the candidate to back, and they don't need Obama to say it publicly or privately. Sanders, for his part, spent much of the evening making closing arguments to Super Tuesday voters in St. Paul, Minnesota. Earlier, he was asked about the efforts to keep him from going up against Trump.
From day one, we have been taking on the establishment. It is no surprise they do not want me to become president.
I want to open the door to Amy's supporters, to Pete's supporters. I know that there are political differences, but I also know that virtually all of Amy's support and Pete's support understand that we have got to move toward a government which believes in justice, not greed.
Where almost all the results are in now, 93%. It continues to be 54-23, and you can see a couple things to point out.
30-point margin?
31.
Good Lord.
This is like South Carolina last week.
But I think you're going to see a lot of people saying, why are we doing this? To what purpose? We want to beat Donald Trump. I mean, I travel around the country, I speak to people, and Democrats are not interested in a revolution, interested in getting this guy out of power just as fast as they possibly can.
It is a reminder again that momentum is more important than anything in politics. He is doing all of this on the wings of momentum. Secondly, let's remember, it's always easier for a politician to get back support they once had. So Biden was the national frontrunner. Looked rickety, didn't do well in the first states, didn't do well in debates. He has one great night, people come back. In part because nobody else answered the mail. Pete did well, but didn't grow his base. Warren was stuck in the teens. Bloomberg looked promising for people, but then laid an egg on the debate stage. So he was the last guy standing. And the African-American vote is obviously going to power him. I think we'll see that tonight.
I've been talking to voters all day about what went into their decision in terms of who they were voting for. And a couple themes emerged. One, it was after almost 4 years of Donald Trump, a sense of normalcy. Let's get back to normal, steady the ship. But the other was decency. And people said it time and again, they wanted a decent candidate to go up against Donald Trump. And when I asked folks about whether Joe Biden's win in South Carolina and whether all of the endorsements that flooded in after South Carolina mattered to them, they said most definitely. It reassured them of their decision. But when I asked them about James Clyburn in particular, that speech he gave introducing Joe Biden, when he said this is a good man, here in Alabama, 55 years after, almost to the date of Bloody Sunday, when people were beaten bloody on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, those were good men and good women to these folks in this state. Let's not forget, 55 years, we are among a generation of black people who really are the first to have their right to vote legally sanctioned. That's not lost on folks here. And so when they talk about this sense of normalcy and decency and steadying the ship, the fingers point towards Joe Biden.
I wonder if voters have internalized some of Joe Biden's electability around the threat that Donald Trump obviously feels from him. Donald Trump is so terrified of running against Joe Biden that he risked his entire presidency. He bet the farm on his whole presidency to kill him off politically.
It's interesting to also see how the Democratic Party is rallying around the former vice president at this point. And I think about a moment last night when Mayor Pete Buttigieg endorsed him in Texas. One of the moments I think that stand out from the perspective of Team Biden was the number of times Mayor Pete defended the vice president when the questions around Ukraine were raised. And I think you will see a closing of the ranks around Joe Biden again if and when the Republicans try to play that again.
Which brings me to the endorsement in South Carolina in an era where we're not supposed to have kingmakers in our politics anymore. I think we disproved that.
I think that James Clyburn has an impeccable reputation across the board, even beyond his congressional district. And it meant a lot because you must remember, he endorsed him at a time when there was not all of the guarantees that Biden would do as well as he did. It was a lot of risk. And for Clyburn to stand there and take that risk and say, this is a good man, he spoke to the hearts of a lot of people that trust him and that trust his judgment. And if you're going to run in South Carolina, I did. You want Jim Clyburn, if he's not going to endorse you, at least be nice to you.
In South Carolina, the number was 56%. 56% of the electorate was black. It's basically half that in Virginia. You're looking at 27%. What is the other piece of the equation in Virginia? It's what we talked about in 2018 and what we've been talking about for 2 years. Suburban voters, suburban white voters. I mean, the biggest county in the state, right here, Fairfax County, right in the D.C. suburbs. And there it is. Joe Biden, 52, Sanders, 23, Bloomberg, 12. I didn't see any Fairfax County specific polling, but I bet a couple weeks ago, if you took a poll in Fairfax County, this number was a lot lower. This number was a lot higher. For that matter, this number was a lot higher. There really has, when you look at Virginia and you look at the polling we saw until South Carolina, there is a lot of persuasive evidence of consolidation around Biden.
This is breaking news from Channel 13 Eyewitness News.
And that breaking news tonight at 11 o'clock. Polls across the country right now are officially closed on this Super Tuesday. In fact, 14 states cast their vote, and the big story tonight is the comeback of Vice President Joe Biden.
NBC News is projecting that Biden has won at least 8 states so far with a stronghold in the South. Senator Bernie Sanders has at least 3, including his home state of Vermont, Colorado, and Utah.
But the
Joe Biden has won the state of Texas, or will win the state of Texas. 20 delegates awarded. How big a deal is this?
This is, look, we said this earlier tonight, right? The symbolic sort of exclamation points on winning or losing the night was, for me, Texas. In particular, Texas was that one where it was the Sanders' power in the West. You have Biden's power in the South. It was meeting in Texas. And Biden pulled it off. And to think he did it with a terrible early vote, an organization that didn't exist, it is an amazing comeback story. Obviously, last night in Dallas, that certainly didn't hurt. But to add Texas to what is already an impressive night, you throw in Maine. I mean, he has. This is a more impressive Super Tuesday than I can think of. It's more impressive than what Barack Obama put together in 2008 when he used Super Tuesday to sort of grab the delegate lead. This is as consequential of a night as we've had in any nomination fight.
And I think the Monday night endorsements in Texas were so critical. The fact that it was in Dallas, that Beto O'Rourke was added, and they sort of staged it so that he was the surprise at the end. Everyone finally had gotten used to the fact that it was going to be Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. That was a big event in Dallas.
We've been focused so much on the Democrats tonight. Let's turn over to what's happening on the Republican side and take a look at the map of the states that President Trump has won. He's won 10 states tonight. Of course, he's had a clean sweep throughout these primaries. John Carl, one of the things we've seen tonight, the president has laid off the Democrats in the last hour or two and instead had a series of tweets thanking every state that brought him a victory.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, as you know, he cleared the field. In some states, there are no Republican primaries, but no surprise, he has complete and total control over his party at this point.
And Chrissy, what a difference 4 years makes. Of course, 4 years ago, you ran against President Trump in the primaries. Ted Cruz, John Kasich held on for a long time as well. And there was even talk then, as I was reminded of it as I was talking to Tom Perez, if there would be some sort of Stop Trump movement at the convention. What a difference we've seen over these 4 years. Complete domination of the party.
I think there's two things. I think most presidents, as you know, George, come to completely dominate their party unless times get really, really bad economically in the country. So that with Bush 41, and that's how the Pat Buchanan boomlet happened. The second thing is the power of Donald Trump's personality. He brooks no dissent. There are other presidents who let party members go off on certain issues. If you're not singing out of the same hymnal as Donald Trump every day, and sometimes every minute of every day, he's going to let you know about it. And that's how social media has changed it, too. Presidents may not want to go down to the briefing room to say something, but if he can just sit there and send a tweet out that's going to go out to 73 million people and have every media organization in the country cover it, it's even easier to be an enforcer.
As we talk about candidates now exiting this race, we can report here at NBC News and MSNBC that Mike Bloomberg is ending his presidential campaign. That is according to our own Josh Letterman, who says the campaign spokesperson is now confirming that Bloomberg is out of this race. It is not completely unexpected, given Bloomberg's recent debate performances, his showings on Super Tuesday, widely considered to be extremely disappointing. I want to bring back whoever we have to be able to talk about this. I know Josh is racing to a camera right now because this is significant in that it does, and Josh Letterman is here for us. Josh, tell us what you're hearing from the campaign and tell us why this is so significant. Let's talk through some of this.
So first, the big headline, Hallie, Mike Bloomberg is out of the presidential race. That's according to his campaign spokesman, Jason Schechter. Mike Bloomberg huddled with his advisors in New York at his headquarters this morning after taking a late night flight back from West Palm Beach, where he spoke to supporters as the very disappointing results were coming in for him. We're told by campaign aides that he wanted to meet with advisors to look at all of the numbers as they were coming in. He's a data-driven guy, wanted to see what the path forward looked like. At the end, they decided this was not something that they wanted to proceed with. Even in the last few minutes, as they were making this final decision, his campaign sent out an email to supporters thanking them for their support, saying that it was going to take a while for all the delegate math to come in, but reaffirming that Mike Bloomberg's top goal in this election is to defeat President Donald Trump, whether that's him or whether that's another Democratic nominee.
Well,
so
Josh, he is in this new statement, and I know that you are probably looking at it in your email as well, the one from the campaign that has just come out in the last couple of seconds. It appears he is throwing his weight behind Joe Biden now. And I want to read this so that folks understand it. We'll get it up on the screen as soon as we possibly can. Again, this is all coming in the last couple of seconds here. Mike Bloomberg in this statement saying, "I've always believed that defeating Donald Trump starts with uniting behind the candidate with the best shot to do it." And Bloomberg says, quote, "After yesterday's vote, it is clear that candidate is my friend and a great American, Joe Biden."
Elizabeth Warren dropping out of the race for president, speaking outside her Cambridge, Massachusetts home today, revealing her decision, promising she will stay in the fight. The Democratic contest now a two-man race, but Warren said what she said today about endorsing when it comes to Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, and Hillary Clinton making news tonight as well, what she said about Biden. Here's ABC's Mary Bruce.
Closing out her campaign, Elizabeth Warren today spoke her mind, but revealed very little about whether she'll endorse one of her rivals.
Not today. Not today. I need some space around this and want to take a little time to think a little more.
Progressives are urging her to back Bernie Sanders, but Warren made clear she and her supporters won't be boxed in.
You know, I was told at the beginning of this whole undertaking that there are two lanes. A progressive lane that Bernie Sanders is the incumbent for, and a moderate lane that Joe Biden is the incumbent for. And there's no room for anyone else in this. I thought that wasn't right, but evidently I was wrong.
Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders are both now courting her supporters.
And today, I would simply say to her supporters out there, of whom there are millions, we are opening the door to you. We'd love you to come on board.
Sanders spoke to Warren today, and so did Biden, who's now racking up endorsements. Hillary Clinton hasn't made it official, but she's sounding close.
I think people know he is a deeply decent person. He is a kind person. He doesn't take cheap shots at people. He doesn't insult people as a way of, trying to put people down and lift himself up. He is such the opposite of what we currently have in the White House that I think, I really think a lot of people, had a chance to think about it.
With Warren's exit, it's now a two-man race. Warren today recalling all those pinky promises she made to little girls.
One of the hardest parts of this is all those pinky promises. And all those little girls who are going to have to wait 4 more years. That's going to be hard.
And she was asked what role gender played in this campaign.
Gender in this race, that is the trap question for every woman. If you say, yeah, there was sexism in this race, everyone says, whiner. And if you say, no, there was no sexism, about a bazillion women think, what planet do you live on?
So I just wanted you guys to know, because you've been supporting me for so long, and I just wanted you guys to know I have decided that I am, with great enthusiasm, going to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States. I believe in Joe. I really believe in him, and I have known him for a long time. One of the things that we need right now is we need a leader who really does care about the people and who can therefore unify the people. And I believe Joe can do that. I am supporting Joe because I believe that he is a man who has lived his life with great dignity. He is a public servant who has always worked for the best of who we are as a nation, and we need that right now. There is so much at stake in this election, guys.
Well, Yasmin, instead of me talking about how the campaign feels about it, why don't I bring in Senator Booker, who just literally came through these doors. Senator Booker, tell us about this.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you back on the campaign trail.
Yes.
Tell us how this endorsement came together. When did you make the decision, and what impact do you think it'll have?
You know, they've been reaching out to me and talking to me and my team for a long time. I think they knew Joe and I had, Vice President and I, have had lots of conversations through this campaign. I'll never forget a debate where he pulls me inside and said, your baby bond idea is really amazing. And they also knew that this was a decision not about just head, but also heart. We need healing in this country. We need to repair the soul of America. We need someone that has the broadest reach to bring as most people together in America so that we can move the important policies for me. So when I took the totality of everything, I respect and love the remaining candidates in this, but this is the right thing to do for America and to beat Donald Trump.
And there is one man now who's ready to go to the center of the arena, who is our best shot to beat Donald Trump.
Racial justice is on the ballot in 2020. And Joe Biden is on the ballot in 2020.
Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, Idaho, Washington State, you will be heard. And Michigan, I'm counting on you in a big way. Look, I view myself as a bridge, not as anything else. There's an entire generation of leaders you saw stand behind me. They are the future of this country. The days of Donald Trump's divisiveness are soon going to be over. And when he's gone, we'll come back. We'll get back on the road of building that more perfect union. So get up. Let's take this back now. Without it, life is weak. I'm not taking that gun away at all. You need 100 rounds. I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that. The guys wanted. I'm not worried.
So much.
Give me a break.
Okay, let me give you some context if you missed that moment. Joe Biden was confronted by a person at one of his events that he was obviously making his pitch to, who accused him of wanting to take his guns away. Joe Biden got to the straight talk real quick, said, "You're full of bleep," and they went at it. And I would posit, David Jelly, I'm coming to you because you're the statesman at the table. No offense to the rest of you. You know, let's not be precious. Whoever wins the Democratic primary will run against a man who writes checks to keep affairs with porn stars secret. Let's not be precious. If that's how you have to defend yourself from it, it's not true. Joe Biden actually doesn't have Beto O'Rourke's position, which is what the auto worker said, which was for some sort of, I'm not even sure that Beto has this position, but this idea of some confiscation of some weapon.
And take a look at this. CNN now projects Joe Biden is the winner in Michigan. 125 delegates are at stake. Joe Biden is the Democratic presidential primary winner in Michigan. So far tonight, he has won Michigan, Mississippi, and Missouri. 3 important states, very significant wins for the former vice president. Jake and Dana, this is what Biden was really hoping for. So far, he's getting what he hoped for.
Yeah, and we've been talking all night and last week about whether or not Bernie Sanders is able to expand his base of support, expand those who are voting for him. And once again, we have a bad sign. This is the worst sign of the night. Bernie Sanders won the Michigan primary 4 years ago. It was a narrow victory, but it was a surprise. Hillary Clinton leading by double digits in polling 4 years ago. Bernie Sanders won with something like 49.5% of the vote. Hillary Clinton with something like 48.5% of the vote. As with Missouri, which he narrowly lost last time, Bernie Sanders is actually, his base is going the wrong way. He's losing voters. Voters who went for him last time are going for Joe Biden in this case.
And the flip side of this is how well Joe Biden is doing. I mean, Joe Biden, if you look at how
well he's doing, and the map behind us, across the country.
It's a lot of dark blue.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't know about California yet, and Bernie Sanders did well in the Southwest. But look at the South. Look at the Midwest right now. A lot of dark blue. Dark blue represents Joe Biden.
We actually have some breaking news, everybody, out of California. I want to get right to MSNBC national political correspondent Steve Kornacki for those results, as we've been awaiting these results now for, 10 days or so at this point?
March 3rd, Super Tuesday. Then we went and we had March 10th. But guess what? We've got a call here from the state of California. I don't know why the check mark didn't pop up. It should have. I'll put it there. Bernie Sanders, NBC News Now declares the winner of California's primary. You see, they are still counting up votes there. There are still a lot to come in there. California, of course, the state where all you have to do is postmark your ballot and put it in the mailbox by Election Day. It can come in a few days later. They'll count it. And so not only is there that delay, they just take a while to count, too. They've talked about taking a month to count all these up. But they have now counted up enough and reported out enough where even with a big number still to come, NBC News is confident Bernie Sanders will end up ahead when all is said and done. I think what's notable about these results, though, obviously, not just the delay, the fact of the delay, because the polling going into California, of course, which was before Joe Biden really suddenly started to take off with South Carolina, the polling in California had suggested a Sanders lead of 15 points or 20 points. It suggested the possibility just a week before the California primary, there was a possibility it looked like Joe Biden might not even hit 15% in California. That's that critical number to get delegates. But I think what you saw here was the folks who waited till the election day itself or a day or two before, that South Carolina result where Joe Biden won so big on that Saturday before Super Tuesday, there was a late flood of Biden votes. That's what we've been seeing. The more the numbers have been coming in here in California, the tighter this has gotten. It will not be enough for Biden to catch Sanders, but certainly from a delegate standpoint, we can just show you what it looks like delegate-wise in California right now. Remember, this is the biggest single one. There are 415 total. We're still trying to figure out some of the congressional districts. But look, Sanders 202, Biden 148. That's obviously good for Sanders. It's 54 more than Biden. But what the Sanders campaign was thinking about a week maybe before the California primary, before Biden took off, they thought they might get 330 delegates out of this thing. And instead, obviously, Biden makes California more competitive, limits that Sanders delegate haul. It's one of the reasons when you look at the national delegate picture right now that Joe Biden is ahead of Bernie Sanders.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency. Two very big words. The action I am taking will open up access to up to $50 billion of very important and a large amount of money for states and territories and localities in our shared fight against this disease. In furtherance of the order, I'm urging every state to set up emergency operation centers effective immediately. You're going to be hearing from some of the largest companies and greatest retailers and medical companies in the world. They're standing right behind me and inside of me.
As the judge sentenced him to 60 months on one conspiracy count involving money laundering and, of course, illegal lobbying, then 13 more months on a second count, obstruction of justice, tampering of witnesses. The first 30 months of that first count will run concurrently with the sentence that he received from Judge Ellis last week. So it's a net of 43 more months in prison on top of the 47 he's already going to serve.
And of course, we don't know.
Georgia's Secretary of State has postponed the presidential primary due to coronavirus concerns. That's tonight's top story. The primary scheduled for March 28th now won't happen until May 19th. In-person early voting, which began on March 2nd, has also been stopped. Officials say one of the biggest considerations in this decision was the safety of poll workers who are often older.
My cabinet, my administration will look like the country. And I commit that I will, in fact, I'll pick a woman to be vice president.
Senator, just to be clear, the vice president committed to picking a woman as his running mate. If you get the nomination, will you?
In all likelihood, I will. Have you been on the floor of the Senate? You were in the Senate for a few years. Yeah. Time and time again, talking about the necessity, with pride, about cutting Social Security, cutting Medicare, cutting veterans programs.
No.
You never said that.
No.
All right. Come on, Joe. You won't.
Look, here's the deal.
You're an honest guy. Why don't you just tell the truth here? We all make mistakes.
I am telling the truth.
You were prepared to cut and advocated for the cuts of programs.
I did not. I never voted to cut Social Security.
Not talking about voting, Joe. That's not what I said.
never voted. But look, I voted to protect it. All right?
One more time. Were you on the floor time and time again, for whatever reason, talking about the need to cut Social Security and Medicare and veterans programs?
No, I did not talk about the need to cut any of those programs.
Okay, all that I would say to the American people, go to YouTube. It's all over the place. Joe said it many, many times.
Governor Mike DeWine declared this health emergency late last night, postponing the election there, announcing that the polls would not open, despite a state judge ruling that the election must go on. There was one bottle, albeit a gallon bottle, of hand sanitizer for everybody in every machine. How did that work out?
Yeah, Brian, that's exactly right. And placed at the end of the process. So only after you'd come through the room did you get rewarded with your hand sanitizer at the end here. Look, the City Board of Elections here in Chicago, the spokesperson said today to reporters that they tried to convince the governor not to hold in-person voting in the city today because they knew there would be problems. And starting early this morning, there were problems. It seemed like it got straightened out across the day. We saw turnout numbers go up across the city all day long. But the preparations to deal with the pandemic were fairly Spartan. Hand sanitizer and wipes for places that had machine-based voting were handed out.
Well, this is actually one of the busier polling locations here around the state in downtown Phoenix, and there has not been a crowd. There has not been long lines. We've stopped at 4 other polling locations today, and the exact same was the same. And to note, because of the early mail-in ballots, turnout has already surpassed that of the 2016 Democratic presidential preference primary here in Arizona.
It is Phoenix. It is the Phoenix suburbs. It is population dense, massive sprawling, all these things. And what happened is you've got weeks here of mail-in voting coming in, early voting in Arizona. The bulk of the vote, like 3/4 of the vote in Arizona, was cast before Election Day.
In Arizona, Joe Biden will indeed make it a clean sweep 3-4-0 tonight and be declared the winner of the Arizona Democratic primary.
I want to thank all the public officials and the poll workers who work closely with the public health authorities to ensure safe opportunities for voting, to clean and disinfect voting booths, and to make sure the voters could cast their ballots while maintaining the distance from one another that was safe.
Former Governor Bill Weld has ended his bid to challenge President Donald Trump for the Republican presidential nomination. In a statement Wednesday, Weld said he would suspend his bid after the president cleared the number of delegates needed to be the GOP nominee. Weld faced an uphill battle since his bid began last April. President Trump's popularity within the party and the cancellation of several GOP primaries and caucuses stopped Weld's campaign from gaining any steam. Weld, a former governor and 2016 vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party, is President Trump's last primary challenger to exit the race. Former Representative Joe Walsh and former Governor Mark Sanford already ended their bids.
States are also having to decide whether to push forward with elections, which after all involve gatherings of people, long lines in some cases, and also people sharing equipment like voting booths. Some states are already postponing their elections, including Ohio last Tuesday.
It is clear that tomorrow's in-person voting does not conform.
And states that vote in the future like Maryland, Georgia, Kentucky, and Louisiana. It's generally accepted that more states are going to have to look at postponing, and maybe even some states who have postponed already could have to push voting even further off.
Wisconsin is doing what no health authority is advising and what critics call undemocratic. As the coronavirus pandemic has 3 in 4 Americans on some kind of lockdown, the dairy state, home to milk-bearing cows, cheese, and now an out-of-control viral outbreak, is going forward with its Tuesday election. Some mayors say Wisconsin is asking people to choose between their health and their right to vote.
The legitimacy of elections are a pretty sacred thing in a democracy. And I'm worried that after the fact, hindsight being 2020, people will say, yeah, you know what? There were a lot of people that wanted to vote and didn't feel like they could safely do it, and so they chose not to. And this is not an accurate reflection of the will of the people.
It is, to put it mildly, a bold move. 15 other states have postponed their primaries or moved to vote entirely by mail. More than 100 Wisconsin cities and towns lack the poll workers to open a single voting booth, so the governor has called in the Army National Guard to do their jobs. For presidential candidates, this is a primary, so most Democratic voters will choose between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. For local officials, it's a general election, and Democrats say the Republican-controlled legislature opted to go forward for a cynical reason. They believe that fear of the virus will drive down turnout in urban Democratic areas, but less so in rural areas dominated by Republicans.
That is our campaign.
Even Bernie Sanders, who won here in 2016 but is behind in recent polls, called for a delay.
We don't want people to have to risk their lives in order to cast the vote.
With no delay, many Wisconsinites are left with a choice. One is to vote by mail, but there are drawbacks.
There will inevitably be some significant share of voters who are unable to participate in the election because they have difficulty getting the ballot or returning it on time, because they have difficulty getting the signature of a witness on the ballot envelope, which is required in Wisconsin, or because they have difficulty getting an ID that is required to request the absentee ballot in the first place.
Otherwise, voters can risk getting the virus by going in person, or simply not vote at all. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Chicago.
This morning, people in Wisconsin have a tough choice to make: protect their health by following the state's stay-at-home order, or exercise their right to vote. That's because after a day of chaos and confusion, Wisconsin primary is actually back on today. Take a look at how long the lines already are in Milwaukee of voters waiting to cast their ballots. It comes after two top courts sided with Republicans Monday, blocking the Democratic governor's efforts to delay in-person voting until June and the deadline for absentee balloting. This morning, the U.S. Surgeon General's advice to voters: don't forget your face mask.
To both of you, I heard him say that he is staying on the ballot. He wants to assemble delegates so that he will have leverage over the party platform at the convention, which we know has been moved out of July into August, at least according to current plans. That he believes that he has, as we say, won the ideological struggle, and Shaq, that his campaign has been more than a campaign, it's been a movement. And he is saying that Joe Biden is a decent man. He congratulates him. That is something short of an actual endorsement, but it is, for all intents and purposes, right. He is joining with Joe Biden. Shaq, first to you.
That's right. You heard Senator Sanders say the struggle continues. That was how he's ended his comments. That was a live stream that he had for supporters. And, you know, the interesting thing about his comments, he said, and you made a note of it, that he will remain on the ballot in the remaining states. He will continue to accrue those delegates. And it's partially because he says that he believes he won the ideological campaign, the ideological battle and the contest for ideas. And you heard him mention that and lay out those ideas, things like Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, raising the minimum wage. He believes that the party has moved with him on those issues, and he wants to lock in that success and potentially exert some pressure on Vice President Biden to maintain that success and to maintain those ideas in the movement of the party.
Democrats would like to see me replace Joe Biden on the ticket. That is, on one hand, flattering. On the other hand, it is irrelevant. But to the extent it's flattering, I appreciate it. And look, when I talked about keep politics out of this, you know, everyone has been, I hope it's changing, but everyone has been very suspicious of government and government officials, politicians. It's always about their politics. They're always trying to take the next step on the ladder. Be very careful about what they say because nuance. They're deceptive creatures, politicians. I never felt that. I never believed it. But now it's more important than ever before that people understand there is no politics here. Sometimes it can work, and it can work right. And sometimes at a time of crisis, you actually see people who play to their strength. There is no politics here. I have no political agenda, period. I'm not running for president. I'm not running for vice president. I'm not running anywhere. I'm not going to Washington. I'm staying right here. I said to the people of this state unequivocally, when I was running for governor, I will serve as your governor. Well, they all say that, and then they do something different. Yeah, I'm not that person. I am going to do what I said I was going to do.
Joe Biden notched another state win in the last competitive race of the Democratic primary. Wisconsin held its statewide primary on April 7th, but the results were delayed because of a court ruling. On Monday evening, the Associated Press projected Biden will win the state's primary. But even before those votes were counted, Biden was already the presumptive Democratic nominee. Senator Bernie Sanders dropped out of the race the day after Wisconsin voters went to the polls. Democrats were successful in expanding mail-in voting for the presidential primary, and nearly 1.1 million Wisconsin residents voted by absentee ballot. But Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers' last-minute attempt to delay in-person voting failed. Over the weekend, Biden also picked up a win in Alaska's primary, which was conducted completely by mail. The former vice president won 11 delegates in that race. Biden will walk away with a majority of Wisconsin's 84 pledged delegates, but he still needs over 700 more to reach 1,991, the magic number needed to officially clinch the nomination. Stephanie Liebergen, Newsy, Miami.
I'd like to welcome to this conversation a leader who shares those values and has been an outspoken advocate for that vision for a long time. My friend, Senator Bernie Sanders. Bernie, welcome.
Joe, thank you very much for your remarks, and thank you for welcoming me to your live stream here. As you've indicated, we are living in an unbelievably unprecedented moment. You and I were chatting a few months ago. Not in a million years would we have believed that we would be talking to each other in our respective homes, that we could not, do rallies, that we could not get out of the house. We would not have believed that we'd be looking not only at a pandemic, which, as you indicated, has taken over 20,000 lives in our country, 500,000 people infected, but has cost us 16 million jobs, and that's probably a conservative number. The real number is probably higher than that. So we are in a terrible moment, an unprecedented moment, and I know we share the understanding that we've got to go forward right now and out of this in an unprecedented way to address the terrible pain that so many of our fellow Americans are feeling. So today I am asking all Americans, I'm asking every Democrat, I'm asking every independent, I'm asking a lot of Republicans to come together in this campaign to support your candidacy, which I endorse, to make certain that we defeat somebody who I believe, and I'm speaking just for myself now, is the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.
Choosing Joe to be my vice president was one of the best decisions I ever made, and he became a close friend. And I believe Joe has all the qualities we need in a president right now.
Former President Barack Obama officially put his support behind his old running mate, Joe Biden.
The spirit of looking out for one another can't be restricted to our homes or our workplaces or our neighborhoods or our houses of worship. It also has to be reflected in our national government. The kind of leadership that's guided by knowledge and experience. And that's why I'm so proud to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States.
Obama didn't want to impact the Democrats' primary process, so he withheld his endorsement of anyone while the primary was competitive. But after Senator Bernie Sanders dropped out, Biden became the presumptive nominee. This is the second big-name endorsement for Biden in as many days. On Monday, Sanders endorsed the former VP and pledged to do anything he could to make President Trump a one-term president. With endorsements from Obama, Sanders, and many of the former 2020 Democratic candidates, Biden and his campaign can now draw on a number of popular surrogates to bring the party together in November. Stephanie Liebergen, Newsy, Miami.
Former Vice President Joe Biden is the winner of the Wyoming caucuses. They took place by mail this year due to the novel coronavirus. Biden got a little more than 72% of the vote, and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders got the rest. Sanders has suspended his campaign for the Democratic presidential nomination, but he's still collecting delegates.
Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. The new headline is Trump asks people to go outside. That's dangerous. Here we go. Same old group. You ready? I hope people enjoy the sun. And if it has an impact, that's great. I'm just hearing this, not really for the first time. I mean, there's been a rumor that, a very nice rumor that you go outside in the sun or you have heat and it does have an effect on other viruses. But now we get it from one of the great laboratories of the world, I have to say. Covers a lot more territory than just this. This is probably an easy thing, relatively speaking, for you. I would like you to speak to the medical doctors to see if there's any way that you can apply light and heat to cure.
Congressman Justin Amash will not run as a third-party candidate for president of the United States. The Republican-turned-independent congressman from Michigan tweeted Saturday that after much reflection, the circumstances would not lead to success. Now, last month he announced he would be exploring a presidential run as a Libertarian Party candidate. Amash made waves last year as the only House Republican to support impeaching President Trump during the Russia investigation.
The former vice president growing visibly testy a little bit after it was insinuated that he had not done enough to prioritize the black community.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. Come on. Take a look at the record.
Mike, how's that playing out this morning?
Well, Eamon, as you know, I've covered former Vice President Joe Biden for a long time, and without fail, I think he tends to get as feisty as you just saw him there, most when he feels like his record is being attacked in ways that are unfair.
And amid the chaos and a pandemic, as we mentioned, today is still primary day here in Pennsylvania. Eyewitness News reporter Howard Monroe is outside of the Kimmel Center on South Broad Street this afternoon, where voting there is underway. Howard.
Janelle, I spoke with elections officials earlier today. They say about 100 people have come out to vote so far. Now, the Kimmel Center is serving as a consolidated polling place for 9 different precincts. On the ballot now are both federal and state offices. Now, polls open at 7 o'clock this morning. They are asking people to practice social distancing. Poll workers are wearing masks and hand sanitizer is available. Despite the Kimmel Center and other polling places being open, city and state officials are urging people to vote by mail. A new state law allows any voter to vote by mail, but with the pandemic and unrest, there are some concerns about how quickly votes will be counted. Governor Tom Wolf signed an executive order last night extending the deadline for mail.
Amid the unrest and the pandemic, there was an election. Joe Biden is closer to securing the delegates needed to win the Democratic presidential nomination. Biden won the Pennsylvania primary tonight. He easily defeated Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. On the Republican side, President Trump ran virtually unopposed. 6 states and the District of Columbia also held contests.
It's official. After an almost year-long, often tumultuous battle, former Vice President Joe Biden has crossed the finish line, formally clinching the Democratic nomination. The milestone sets him up for a bruising battle against President Donald Trump that will play out amid the backdrop of a pandemic, economic collapse, and civil unrest. A daunting trifecta of challenges Biden hopes to use to his advantage.
They're some of the sternest challenges our nation has ever faced. They need a president who cares about them, who cares about helping them heal now.
Biden became the presumptive nominee almost 2 months ago when his last opponent in the primary, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, dropped out of the race. But he only pulled together the nearly 2,000 delegates needed to seal the nomination after the latest round of contests this week. The former vice president's path to the prize wasn't always clear. While he consistently led the largest primary field in history in the national polls, his campaign looked to be in trouble after a string of losses in the early contests.
So when you hear all these pundits and experts, cable TV talkers talked about the race, tell them, it ain't over, man. We're just getting started.
He rebounded with a resounding win in South Carolina, and from there dominated Super Tuesday, launching what turned out to be an insurmountable comeback.
The day after South Carolina, other candidates started endorsing Biden. Democrat leaders started endorsing Biden. And that helped him over the top just about everywhere on Super Tuesday. The results made it a done deal.
While Biden no longer has to battle Democratic rivals, he has a host of other issues to tackle, from winning over skeptics in his party's left wing to running a campaign essentially out of his Delaware home.
We have a sleepy guy in a basement of a house that the press is giving a free pass to.
That understated approach may irk his rival and challenge political norms, but some analysts say it could be just the right move during this unprecedented campaign year.
And the best strategy for Joe Biden may be a low-key strategy, which fits him pretty well. Do the events that you want to do, organize them from your basement of your home, and let Donald Trump deal with problems. It's actually tougher this year to be the incumbent than it is to be the challenger.
With the top of the 2020 ticket now set, all eyes are turning to what could be the most important decision of Biden's 5-decade political career, choosing a running mate, something he says he hopes to do by August 1st.
Voters in New York and Kentucky experienced long lines and delays as they cast their ballots in the June 23rd primaries, with final results not expected for days. Both states' primaries were postponed from earlier dates due to coronavirus health concerns.
And now to Campaign 2020. Primary elections were held today in New Jersey and Delaware after being delayed due to the pandemic. Former Vice President Joe Biden won the Democratic presidential primaries in both states. On the Republican side, President Trump ran virtually unopposed.